Hello everyone, good morning, good afternoon, whatever the case may be. I will admit this feels very weird and strange to me, but I will try and get past that, as I believe it's very important for us to stay connected with each other. I can't say that I'll be able to do this every day, certainly, but I want to put something up today. As we've already said, we won't be doing services on Sunday, and so I want to be able to encourage you with an important concept from the scriptures today, and it's going to come from a few verses, so hopefully I don't talk too fast or move too quickly, but I'd encourage you to follow along with me. In Psalm 57 verse 1, David writes, "Be gracious to me, O God, be gracious to me, for my soul takes refuge in you, and in the shadow of your wings I will take refuge until destruction passes by." And the part I want to focus on today is in the shadow of your wings, I will take refuge. If you were to think of a connecting passage to this, you might think of Matthew 23, verse 37, where Jesus says, "Jerusalem, Jerusalem, who kills the prophets and stones those who are sent to her. How often I wanted to gather your children together, the way a hen gathers her chicks under her wings, and you were unwilling." And that would be appropriate as we think of a hen protecting and providing for her chicks. But David understands this in Psalm 57 with an additional layer. Yes, there is the protection that comes from many animals in relation to their young, but David's got something deeper in mind here also. The Jews were commanded to wear tassels on the four corners of their garments in Numbers 15, verses 37 to 41. I won't read those for you, but I encourage you to read them for yourself if you're not familiar. It's a reminder of the law, or the Torah, and the God who gave that law. And so the Jews came to see this as symbolizing that God is one, but also the full measure of the commandments contained in the Torah. And they, by wearing them, symbolized humility and submission to come under God's command in obedience, but also to come under all of his commands. But the tassels also came to represent the authority that a Jewish man has in society. And that becomes very important in the concept that David is putting forward in Psalm 57. In 1 Samuel 24, David is fleeing from King Saul, and he hides out in the area of En-gedi. There's some very large caves there, and so David hides out with his men in one of these caves. Saul comes into this very cave to rest, relieve himself, whatever that is. And David and his men are hiding in the back of the cave, and David's men encourage him to kill Saul. Say, "This is your moment. God has put Saul in your hands. Now you can kill him." David refuses, but he does go up, and it says that he cuts off a corner of Saul's robe, which seems like a very small and minor thing to us, but I believe he's actually cutting off one of Saul's tassels. And that would explain why David's conscience bothers him and why he feels bad about doing it. If it was merely just cutting off a corner of his robe, then that would be minor. But if in fact David cuts off one of Saul's tassels, that says much more. It's saying that he rejects Saul's authority. He rejects his power, he rejects his position, and he refuses to come under it. And that's why I believe he came to regret cutting it off, because that's what is represented in the tassel. In Ruth chapter 3, Naomi, Ruth's mother-in-law, encourages Ruth to go to the threshing floor where Boaz was in the night and to uncover his feet and lay down. And Naomi says when he wakes up, do what he tells you to do. So Ruth does this, and when Boaz wakes up, she says to him, "Spread your covering over your maid, for you are a relative," or some translations say a redeemer. This seems odd to us, but what Ruth is actually saying is she's saying, "Spread your tassel over me so I can come under your protection and under your provision. I choose to submit and surrender to your authority." And this is the fuller expression of what David is saying in Psalm 57, verse 1. "Be gracious to me, O God, be gracious to me. For my soul takes refuge in you, and in the shadow of your wings I will take refuge until destruction passes by." David writes Psalm 57 at the time that he cuts off Saul's tassel in the cave. ironic and yet very appropriate. David expresses a need and a desire to come under God's authority, to come under God's protection, and to come under God's provision. He recognizes his need for all three. And when he says that he is intending to take refuge in the shadow of his wings, that's what he has in mind. It's figuratively coming under God's tassel. God spreading his tassel over David. David saying, I surrender to you. You are my protector. You are my provider. And I choose to come under your authority. And so it's a humble statement, expressing honestly David's need and an acknowledgement that he must surrender and he must submit. And this is a very appropriate prayer for us to pray at any time, in any age, but maybe fittingly for today. Would you pray, be gracious to me, O God, be gracious to me, for my soul takes refuge in you, and in the shadow of your wings I will take refuge until destruction passes by. What does that mean? I don't know. But it means that I choose to surrender, I choose to submit, and I choose to give control to God and allow him to do what he wants, how he wants. We are not able to meet this Sunday. We are not able to meet tonight for Bible class. The youth are not able to meet for Bible study, for activities, and we don't know how long this will go. This might be a couple of weeks. It might extend for a period longer than that. And it can be discouraging. It might be frightening. A panic tends to breed panic, and there seems a lot of that today in our society and in fact around the world. And I want to encourage you, God is still in control. He is still on his throne. From his perspective, absolutely nothing has changed. From yesterday till today, from a month ago till today, from the beginning of time until today. He knew this would happen. He allowed it to happen for reasons that we may never understand. And we don't know what the future holds, but God does. And he is trustworthy. And he is faithful. And he will keep all of his promises. And we can rest in that. We can take comfort in that. And we must take refuge in that. I pray that this will bring you a measure of encouragement. And I pray that we will continue to look for opportunities to serve him today and in the days and weeks coming. Talk to you again.